Coming up on The Reveal. Guardrails are meant to keep you safe.
This product is inherently defective and deadly.
Why the device that impaled this teen's car is still on Georgia roads. Then, concerns over Georgia's drinking water.
Allowing these chemicals to just continue to flow into our environment is just letting downstream families, communities, our rivers, the fish, be the test subjects.
Why scientists are zeroing in on the carpet capital of the world, and the drastic step one city is taking to protect people. Plus, the learning curve.
I didn't really learn that much this past year, but somehow they passed me on to the next grade. So.
A closer look at students left behind in the midst of the pandemic.
From our Midtown studios in Atlanta, The Reveal begins now with our multi-Emmy and National Mural Award-winning team of investigators.
Welcome to The Reveal. I'm Kristen Crowley. Are Georgia drivers unknowingly sharing the road with something potentially dangerous? A type of guardrail named in multiple lawsuits that Georgia refuses to remove. 11 Alive investigates the potential dangers and the warnings from other states about this guardrail that Georgia has ignored.
She was visiting Georgia on the evening of October 31st and was headed back to Tennessee early in the morning on November 1st, 2016. She was coming north on 75 and just never made it home.
Do you remember the last time you spoke to her?
She was in our drive. Yeah.
Steve Eimers can't remember exactly what he said. He didn't know that conversation
It was in our driveway.
would be their last.
We never saw her again.
At 17 years old, his daughter Hannah was killed in a crash just across the Georgia border in Tennessee.
What a guardrail going through a car will do to a body.
Suddenly, Steve says a device meant to guard against danger betrayed his daughter.
This product is inherently defective and deadly.
A wrongful death lawsuit alleges Hannah crashed into an X-lite guardrail, which then failed to telescope like it's designed to do. Instead, attorneys say it pierced through the car, through Hannah. And the suit argues it wasn't the first time the X-lite failed.
It cuts people in half, it decapitates it. It disembowels them, disarticulates them, and you are literally left to pick up the pieces.
We contacted every state's Department of Transportation across the country. 29, including Georgia, said the X-lite was installed on their roads at some point. Less than a year after Hannah's death, Tennessee began removing them from its highways. It sent out this letter to the Federal Highway Administration saying the state believes the product does not provide adequate protection of motorists based on crashes where the rail penetrated a vehicle cabin. 17 other states followed Tennessee's lead in removing them. Georgia did not, and as many as 300 X-lite guardrails are still on its roads today.
It's just wildly reckless. I cannot understand why they would leave a product on the roadside that they have identified as not performing.
The Georgia Department of Transportation declined to comment on camera about why it will not remove the guardrails from Georgia roads. GDOT confirms 300 X-lites were sold to contractors in the state. But when we asked where those guardrails were installed, a spokesperson gave us 9 known locations. Tracking down the rest, it said, would cost us. How much? $97,000. That's because GDOT doesn't know where all the X-lite guardrails are. It doesn't keep track.
They said they don't have a map of where they're located. Is that a problem?
I think that's a big problem. It's, potentially 300 pieces of rail that are waiting to pierce a firewall and go into a vehicle. And that's too many.
Leslie Kroger is an attorney who says her firm filed 4 lawsuits involving 5 deaths tied to X-lite guardrails, including the death of Hannah Eimers.
Do you think it's fair to say it's only a matter of time before somebody hits one of these guardrails and gets injured or killed by them like your clients have?
Unfortunately, that is a very real possibility.
That possibility could have become a reality for whoever hit this X-lite guardrail off I-75 in Henry County. We got a copy of a letter sent in 2017. The Federal Highway Administration Georgia Division says the impact on this guardrail was minimal, but had it been more significant, it could have speared the vehicle.
We had just not seen that type of failure mode in guardrail in a couple of decades.
While Georgia DOT won't talk to us, Tennessee's DOT did.
Interstate type, high speed, impacts is where we were seeing problems with them. Where the speed limit was posted at 45 miles an hour is where we saw that we felt that there was a risk out there.
And our investigation found multiple X-lite guardrails on busy highways where the speed limit is 65. Along I-75, we found at least 4 in Henry County and at least 2 in Gordon County. While Georgia won't remove them, it's also no longer installing them. No state is. And not just because of these crashes. The X-lite no longer meets safety standards to be on roads.
If a product is on the roadway and the safety standard has been risen, why is it still there?
Because there's enough evidence, in your opinion, that these should be taken off the roads.
I will say I would not want to drive next to one.
Making sure people aren't driving next to one is Steve's mission. But he says he keeps hitting roadblocks trying to get Georgia DOT to remove the X-lite.
I want to be able to say when I get a call from somebody in Georgia, I did everything in my power to stop and prevent what happened to your loved one. And I'm sorry. They didn't listen. They will eventually.
The maker of X-lite, Lindsay Corporation, stands by the safety of the guardrails. It says the Federal Highway Administration found no evidence the guardrails were unsafe and added multiple states have had no negative experiences with the X-lite.
Up next on The Reveal, what is in the water?
Maybe more troubling what we don't know about these chemicals.
The Reveal investigates what's being done to stop dangerous leaks in our drinking water. For more on these investigations or to submit a tip to the Reveal team, text REVEAL to 404-873-9114 or email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
A Reveal investigation has uncovered state scientists are now testing more than 100 water utilities for a toxin linked to cancer and other illnesses. It's a chemical compound unregulated by the government, and it's most likely found somewhere in your home. We go to a potential source of the problem and the dramatic step one city is taking to deal with it. At the foothills of the North Georgia mountains lies one of the most biodiverse river systems in North America.
The Conasauga River is incredibly special. The whole basin is, but the Conasauga River in particular has more individual aquatic species in it than all of the rivers in Europe combined.
Jesse Chapman is the executive director of the Coosa River Basin Initiative, an environmental advocacy group. While he can easily name all the fish likely swimming under his canoe,
Holiday darters, amber darters,
there's something else in the water he's focused on, a chemical potentially impacting the river's fragile ecosystem and those who rely on it for drinking water.
Maybe more troubling what we don't know about these chemicals, specifically what the long-term impact of them on the wildlife and on the rivers.
Chapman is talking about a group of chemicals called perfluoroalkyl, or PFAS for short, which are resistant to heat, water, and oil. It works so well, scientists nicknamed it the forever chemical, widely used in everything from nonstick cookware to food packaging, and for decades by a specific industry about an hour upstream the Conasauga River in a town that's made a name for itself.
Dalton, Georgia is still the carpet capital of the world.
My hometown, Dalton, Georgia, carpet capital of the world.
It's the carpet capital of the world, man.
At one point, about 90% of the world's carpet was manufactured in the Dalton area. For years, often using PFAS to make the carpet more stain resistant. Chemical waste from the plants are treated here at Dalton Utilities and eventually deposited into the Conasauga. In 2016, the Environmental Protection Agency issued a lifetime health advisory for PFAS. Studies linked the chemical to liver damage, low birth weight, and cancer. Soon after, the Georgia Environmental Protection Division discovered elevated levels at one of Dalton's water treatment plants and in multiple rivers downstream, including the Oostanala, which flows through the city of Rome.
It's a huge deal for us.
Michael Hackett is the director of Rome's Water and Sewer Division. After the state identified PFAS in the Oostanala, Hackett says the city did something it's never done before. It stopped using the main water intake facility that serves tens of thousands of people.
Back in the days when we were on this full time, about 8 to 10 million gallons a day.
And today, how many gallons?
Today, virtually none.
The city now uses this backup facility along a different river. It's for emergencies, but the city has relied on it for more than 5 years.
This station is where our primary water source is coming from.
What
now.
A huge difference.
Sure.
I mean, this looks like a shack. I mean, no offense.
No, none taken. I agree. I agree. It wasn't built for what it's doing right now.
If you didn't have this other river, what kind of situation would this be?
We would have seen an entirely different outcome. We could have been shut down.
Last year, the city of Rome filed a lawsuit against more than a dozen carpet manufacturers, including 3M, the company that used to make and supply PFAS. All have denied wrongdoing.
We have been working with,
Here's Denise Rutherford, 3M's Senior Vice President of Corporate Affairs, defending the safety of the chemical during a congressional testimony in 2019.
That the weight of scientific evidence shows no adverse human health effects at current or former levels.
So 3M is telling lawmakers to not be concerned about this?
No, we are saying that we should be concerned. We do request additional studies. But what we can say is we've been studying our own workforce for more than 40 years. These are people who had occupational exposure at much higher levels than the general population. We do not see, looking at the scientific evidence of our own workforce, adverse human health effects.
Since the EPA's health advisory 5 years ago, PFAS remains unregulated, which means the government cannot force water utilities to treat for PFAS or limit manufacturers from using it.
Oh, it's immensely frustrating. Allowing these chemicals to just continue to flow into our environment is just letting downstream families, communities, our rivers, the fish, be the test subjects. And in a decade, we'll say, okay, well, this was a really bad idea. But at that point, the harm will have been done.
Earlier this year, the state started a monitoring program to test drinking water for PFAS at 109 water treatment plants in North Georgia. This is a map identifying the testing sites, the blue dots showing the current and future locations where the testing will take place. We've included a link to this map in this story on 11alive.com.
Up next on The Reveal, students struggling to learn.
He just kind of breezed through the days and didn't do anything, and then they passed him.
Who's suffering the most and what's being done to bring them back up to speed?
My name is Robert Stovall. I was freed from jail because of an 11 Alive investigation.
When we heard a judge sentenced Mr. Stovall to a year in jail for less than an ounce of weed, we started asking questions. If we didn't call the judge, where do you think you'd be?
Still in there, definitely. This story, this journalism, this investigation, it made me feel like there's a sense of human compassion left in the world still. I never thought that the news could be so important.
Do me a favor, step out of the vehicle for me. These people really put my freedom in the hands of a coin flip.
Imagine getting arrested and having no idea the decision was made on the flip of a coin. Without our intervention, what would have happened when you went into court?
I would have had no idea, and I probably would have pled no contest. Nobody would have known about it.
That's what we do. We reveal what's hidden, and we got this defendant's case thrown out because otherwise she wouldn't have known.
Welcome back. The pandemic created education gaps for students that experts say will take years to address, but some students suffered more than others. We sat down with some of them and their parents looking for help.
I call them the deceiving carrots because they look big and they this. So, you know.
Like the vegetables in his garden, 15-year-old Daniel Johnson wanted to academically grow this past school year, but felt like he got the short end of the stick.
Kind of, because I didn't really learn that much this past year, but somehow they passed me on to the next grade, so.
What's the problem?
The problem for Daniel? A pandemic that stifled students and their teachers across Georgia, forcing them to manage a deadly virus while adjusting to virtual learning. But perhaps more so for students with disabilities like Daniel, who are on the autism spectrum. His mom, Deborah,
I had onions here and garlic.
believes their school district, Newton County, did not follow his IEP or individualized education plan to keep him on track. She was so frustrated, Deborah addressed the school board about it.
I have a child who is failing. He just kind of breezed through the days and didn't do anything, and then they passed him. So I've asked for him to be repeated, and they have not honored that as far as I know.
Do you want to go play on the slide or the swing?
7-year-old Johan Krishna Kumar struggled this past school year too.
He wants to eat the lollipops.
The Forsyth County student is also on the autism spectrum. Johan's parents say teachers went above and beyond, even driving to their home to go over assignments, but they're still making him repeat the first grade. He was unable to attend speech, behavior, and occupational therapies.
And when you say occupational therapy, you got to take a paper and cut using a scissor. That is something that cannot be taught on a computer. Special needs kids specifically, that is the most difficult job. And I believe that kids on a spectrum took a hard hit on that by going online.
Johan and Daniel's stories echo multiple reports from across the country, showing students failing or dropping out at alarming rates during the pandemic. In Daniel's district alone, Newton County held back 852 more students in 2020 than it did the year before. That's a 120% increase.
I think children with special needs have been hit the hardest.
Experts like Dr. Vita Johnson say districts should focus on getting special needs students back on track first. The Emory Pediatrics professor is director of Partners for Equity in Child and Adolescent Health.
Unfortunately, a large number of our families don't know how to deal with it, especially marginalized children of color. So we really need to be mindful as we open up that we have resources in place to address that.
Sometimes like this one right here will cuddle with me sometimes.
Georgia's special needs students stunted by an education epidemic that will take years to overcome. Do you almost wish you had a redo?
Kind of. I kind of don't want to redo it, but I kind of do want to redo it. It's like, I didn't learn anything. To be honest, I didn't really learn anything about the subjects.
Newton County officials said it cannot respond to Johnson's concerns, but it has processes in place to assess needs based on the impact of the pandemic. Like most districts, Newton plans to offer a combination of in-person and virtual instruction this school year.
For more on these investigations or to submit a tip to the Reveal team, text REVEAL to 404-873-9114 or email us at thereveal@11alive.com.
Our investigations have impact.
Is there a reason why you won't talk with me?
You've recently been indicted.
This is on the record.
Change laws.
Don't you think someone needs to be held accountable for this?
Expose crimes. crimes that lead to murder indictments.
We would not be able to prosecute this case without that video.
See the 11 Alive investigators change the face of local news.
Thanks for watching. You can find more of our investigations on 11 Alive's YouTube channel. We'll see you right back here next time on The Reveal.